Have y'all ever noticed the change in a dismissive avoidant after going no contact? You start to see their physical appearance look a bit different from the last time you seen them in person. Now, I'm going to tell y'all about the time that I felt the need to go no contact with the DA because I just couldn't do it anymore. I just didn't have it in me anymore to keep going. And he wasn't showing me anything different. And a lot of times I knew why, but it's like the constant pushback was just becoming a little bit too much to me. Like you're fighting against someone who's trying to help you see yourself in order, to communicate better, to identify whatever the issues are. But he wasn't trying to hear that. So I went no contact. I just couldn't do it. And then what they do is like try to make you feel guilty for your needs. But at the same time, it's okay that they express what they need from you. And it's just like you're kind of taking the place of something that they missed out on at some point in their life. And we all know it goes back to childhood. But they can't make you responsible to make up for lost times in their life. It's like it comes a time when you have to say, okay, I understand that life wasn't the greatest for me as a child. I went through a lot, but I got to come from out of this rut. I got to see the better and bigger picture. I got to do better for myself. I want to be good in other people's lives. I don't want to carry the baggage of them knowing that, I'm holding on to something and I'm going to use that and create this whole victim mentality, just like the whole nine. So I ran into him at the gym and I was just like, okay, I know when you're at the gym, expect to see people, putting in work and looking a bit, worked out or drained pretty much afterwards. Sometimes you see more adrenaline after the workout than you did before they even entered the gym. Some people enter the gym, because they're trying to motivate themselves to do something. And some of them, they need to let off energy. So those are the things that I noticed. First of all, was his appearance. So again, the first thing I noticed is that the last time we were together, the person pretty much seemed the same way. Like he left off there. And they do this because what they do is hold on to those more happy moments they had with you. And it started to wear off. That's what I noticed. Like they haven't had a haircut in such a long time. Let's say, for example, I haven't seen him since March. That's when I went no contact. That's the last time we spoke. But I run into him in June. And you mean to tell me that you still have the exact same kind of clothes on? Like there's no change. And even though some people might say, well, I have the same clothes since March. I have as well. But what I'm saying is that you just notice something about them, like they will stay where they were and they'll stay there because it makes them feel better. Like, like if they could make time just stand still and they could stay in a moment, that made them feel a little better. And so they do that as, I guess, a coping mechanism, because they're not in touch with their true self, their true feelings. They don't do well at expressing themselves. So, that's just a thing for them. And again, they've neglected, they neglected their physical hygiene. It's just like they've just gone down. And you see it. And you notice these things. And you start to wonder, like, what have you been doing since the last time we spoke? And you can't get past their appearance to just jump into a conversation. Now, another thing that they love to do is to put on an act. They love to perform and pretend like they're so happy. Things been going so great for them. Everything's just wonderful and I'm fine. And they're not fine. They're not fine. They look like they've been through hell. And not to say that you're judging them in a way to put them down, because of course you're not. You were with them and you had your reasons for going no contact, and it's understandable. The thing about it is, it's just like it kind of makes you feel frustrated and upset and maybe even angry, like you haven't done nothing. You haven't made the change. You haven't done the work. You haven't begun to see yourself. Like what you're doing is pretending like this is okay. But aside from seeing them this way, it doesn't just make you upset and frustrated and a little angry, because the anger could be for many things. It could be from you feel like you wasted your time with somebody. You could be mad at yourself because you feel played. Like, how could I have allowed myself to be in a relationship so long with somebody who just never really honored me, never really respect me? Like, did they love me at all? So the anger is not always towards the avoidant. Sometimes it's at yourself. But again, aside from that, you also feel sadness because you start to see that there are deeper issues than just us. So that's where the empathy comes in at, and you start to feel like, dang, was I the selfish one in a relationship? How did I miss something? Like, but then all you could think about is because I was pushing them to just do better. You had those issues, but it wasn't as bad as you thought it was until you were out of their life. And just in that small amount of time, you get to see, like, dang, it was a really big impact to this person. It really meant something, when we were together. So you start to look at the bigger picture, and you start to kind of look at things differently than just, who they were when you were with them. You start to think about ways that you can help them if they want that, and how you can help yourself to even, understand this person. And if you even wanted to reconnect, be with them again, if the feelings are still there, if you're still in love with them, it's good to be honest about that. But they have to also be willing to do the work that's needed if that's something that the both of you want. And again, I've been there and done that, so I know what I'm talking about. You're going to have a lot of patience. It takes patience to work with an avoidant, to really get with them on their level, and for them to understand that you're not their enemy, and that they can let their guards down with you. So for whatever it's worth, if you ever felt like, I want to give this another try with this person, if you decide to reconnect after that moment of seeing each other again, and you open up the communication again, and you decide, I think that, we need to sit down and talk about some things. You got to understand that even though you miss them and everything, and you notice some things, and it really just touch you in a way to where you see it different now, just understand that it's going to be a work in progress, and it doesn't happen overnight. You got to be willing to take the steps that are needed, and you're going to have to have patience, practice patience with them. And the same with you. Like, it's a partnership thing. It's a 50-50 thing. It has to be something that they're willing to do as well. They play a huge part in, knowing what they need to do. Not only for them, but in order to have a healthy relationship with anyone, they're going to have to be open and honest. They're gonna have to learn to communicate. Communication is key. That's just something that they have never really been too good at. That's what makes them disappear a lot of the times, when they feel the pressures of, a person just expecting more out of them. So in order to meet other people's needs, they have to be willing to do so. They have to put forth the effort. But first it takes, admitting that, okay, there's some things I need to work on. I really need to work on myself. And you have to be willing to give them that space to do so. And also, you need to learn to take the steps and do all the research that's needed in order to have a good relationship with them, and just kind of help each other along the way. Because that's what it's going to take. It takes work in order for any relationship to work, whether it's a romantic relationship, committed relationship, or either a friendship. It takes work. Sometimes even counseling. Sometimes we got to get outside, third party people to help us to navigate through this thing called life. Because we all have a story to tell at the end of the day. A lot of times we go on through without really knowing the background, the backstory to us. And so, that creates a huge struggle with things that sometimes cause it to come to an end, even if we really don't want it to.